From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through and what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again. Before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, into my systems of belief. Because it's all of those forces that created the body that I had. And if I wanted to get a new body, I was going to have to go work on those 6 forces. And now I'm here each week to help you get that result by constantly reminding you of this every single week. Every single week. And now, I am here yet again live, broadcasting on YouTube, the live recording of the podcast. So if you don't know about that, I have a YouTube channel. Those of you, the podcast listeners, you can head on over to youtube.com, type in Chris Terrell Coaching, and that'll pull up my YouTube channel. I go live there every Monday morning to kick off your weight loss week, and I would love to have you come participate in that with me. So you can be sure to subscribe, to that YouTube channel, and you'll be notified anytime I go live, including when I record the podcast. So if you want to see it uncut, see it unedited, just as it comes out, head on over to the YouTube channel and you can watch all of those, get a little behind the scenes, as it were. Okay. I am pivoting right now. I'm pivoting. There's a lot of areas in my life right now that I need to adjust. I need to get different results. I want to level up in a lot of areas of my life. I've been feeling that itch to do the same thing I did when I lost my weight. When I lost my weight, I was going after what felt impossible. I was doing something big for the first time that I had always wanted to do. And I had actually gone for many times, but had always come up short. You know, I would stop somewhere short of the goal, and then I would end up finding my way back. And I'm wanting to go after things in life that feel that way again. And as I'm a business owner, my business is a great place to do that with. But that's not where it stops. My personal finances, I want to level that up even more. I leveled it up, but I want to go to the big time next level jump. My family life, my personal life, my health and wellness, just basically I'm looking across the board of my life and I'm raising the standard. I'm saying what once used to be acceptable is no longer acceptable. My standards have raised. They're higher. And this is a crucial part of transformation, is you must raise your standards and go to the things that used to be okay and say, it's not okay. It's not okay anymore. It needs to be different. And one of the things that's going to be really helpful with that is working on your thoughts, working on what's bouncing around in your head. And the more you can get a hold of your thoughts and shift those in the direction you want, the easier your transformation will be. That doesn't mean the transformation is going to be easy. It'll probably be hard, but it will be easier. And something that can really help with that is processing your thoughts outside of your head. And one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is to take a pen and take a piece of paper and put them down on there and then look at them. You just take your thoughts, you put them on a piece of paper, and you just look at them. They don't have to be feelings. It could be like, I wonder how I'm going to solve this problem. And you just start jotting down random ideas. You could even go, well, what are all the problems in my life that need to be solved? And you could just start jotting all those down. And so you might call this the J word, journaling. Gosh, I know. Chris, you mentioned it last week on the podcast. I know I'm doing it 2 weeks in a row to you, but I really think you ought to get into journaling. And if you've not been getting into journaling and you're looking for a good reason, you're not exactly sure where to start and you feel overwhelmed or you've had bad experiences in the past or you've always felt it not particularly worth it, I'd love to invite you to go download my free journaling guide if you've not done it. It's a great guide. You can find a link to it in the show notes of the podcast, or you can go to christerrellcoaching.com and click free resources in the menu, and there'll be a spot there where you can download it. A bunch of y'all came and downloaded it last week. Got a few messages from you all thanking me for it. I'm glad you found it helpful. So if you haven't got the journaling guide, it's totally free. It's an excellent resource, and I want to get that in your hands. Head on over there and download that. But with the pivoting, I am journaling like crazy, y'all. I'm having to really get my thoughts out of my head, and it's so much more than just like, how do I feel? It's like I'm trying to figure out my personal finances, and I'm just having to doodle stuff out to like figure out like, how do I solve this? How do I work through this? How do I work in the current circumstances and yet still get more out of it? And so I thought today for the podcast, I would give you some pointers to help you move beyond where you're at now. You're feeling stuck, feeling like you haven't made any progress in a while, maybe you haven't made any meaningful progress somewhere. It's not like my life isn't progressing. In all areas of my life, if I look at where I'm at now and I compare it to where I was a year ago, I have improved. I mean, just across the board. So, I mean, in all respects, I'm very pleased. But the rate of improvement is not where I'd like. And it's not because I'm like being hard on myself. I've just been enjoying going slow. I mean, several years ago, I met my wife, and I decided to slow myself down and become part of a family. And, I became a stepdad. That was not something I knew was in the cards, and I really wanted to do that right. And I still don't have a clue what I'm doing with that. I just don't have a clue, but I'm doing the best I know how. But part of it I look at is like the roles in my life. And I'm like, well, one of the roles in my life is I'm a dad. I mean, stepdad, but it's, I stepped into the role of dad, stepdad. And it's like, so in the home that I live in, I'm the dad role. Well, when did I get over here? I got over to this side of the table. I thought there was supposed to be like an orientation meeting and a handbook of like Teenagers 101, preteen 101, girls going through Teenagers 101, budgeting for households 101. I just thought there'd just be like all these guidebooks and telling me how to do it. Nope. Turns out none of those. There's a bunch of general stuff, but like, what about my situation? What about for me? And so it's like, all right, I got to work on this. So I got to level up, right? So new things are in my life now. My business has totally changed. When I first started coaching, I just coached one-on-one, and now it's just turned into this amazing membership full of hundreds and hundreds of incredible people, and it keeps growing. Because we're having success. I mean, we're having regularly these just shocking before and after photos in our newsletter every month. I mean, it's just incredible to see these people's transformations, and it's like it just keeps growing. And I'm like, I gotta level up. I gotta level up again. And I was like, well, I could do a little incremental level up like I've been doing. And I'm like, or I could like do what I did before. I mean, have you ever like leveled up by 200 or 300% in just a few years? Have you ever gone for that? You can do it. You can't do it all the time. You can't do it every year. But for like just a year or two, you could be like, it's time to grow. It's time to grow. You can do that. And I'm like, I'm feeling the itch. I'm just feeling it. I need to like grow. I need to like shake loose some. I'm just too comfortable. I'm too young. Like I just got to go for it. And it's just like, why not? Why not? I got to pass time. So there's some philosophies that I'm taking into my head now that I used when I was losing weight. And I thought I could talk to you about them today on the podcast because it's live and fresh in my head. And I can talk about it in a way like from a point of feeling it. So here's my first tip. If you're trying to level up and you're looking around your life, it's to forget where you were. Right? Now, I'm not talking level up from garbage, right? I'm not talking like your life is terrible, everything is awful, or you look at the mirror and you just can't stand everything you see. I'm not talking about that. That's a different kind of thing. I'm talking like if you're on your weight loss journey, you've lost 80 pounds of your 150. Like you're kicking ass, but there's a long way to go. The first 80 pounds brought tremendous leveling up out of you. You had to learn a ton to get that first 80 pounds off, but man, it's getting slow. It's getting difficult. It's getting challenging. So it's like, what do I do? And you're like, all right, I got to level up, right? I got to level up again. And one of the things I found that helps when you're trying to level up and you're in this period of growth and you're feeling a little stagnant is you got to forget where you were. You have to forget where you were and only look at where you are now. You got to forget where you were and only look at where you are now. And oh my gosh, I just remembered a book. I'll be right back. So I just went to my bookshelf and I grabbed one of my favorite books, and that is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This is just one of my absolute favorite books. I've read from it many times on the podcast, but I'm going to take a different twist on it than I normally do. It says right here, live life in day-tight compartments. He advised his students, look neither forward nor backward beyond a 24-hour cycle. Live today as best you can. By living today well, you do the most within your power to make tomorrow better. So the thing I want to focus in on, the angle of that is, it's you're giving the present all your focus. And part of giving the present all your focus is going, what are my present results? What are my current results right now? And just looking at them. And where are they right now? And also figuring out this very important answer, which is, what's my trajectory? Where am I headed and how fast am I headed there? Now, on a weight loss journey, a lot of people like to use the scale to give them that answer. But like, what do you do when it's a journey that has nothing to do with weight loss? You can't always just use the scale. So, and in the weight loss, be wary of the scale. But where are you headed? Where are you headed? Now, here's the important part about where you headed. You then get to go, is this where I want to be heading? Am I moving towards where I want to go? In the case of weight loss, you're like, well, yeah, I'm wanting to lose weight. Well, but that's not where you want to go. That's what you want to do. You want to lose weight. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do that to go somewhere. What do you want? What's on the other side of this journey you're about to go on? You're about to stack a whole bunch of days together and do things in these days in hopes that you get an outcome. What's that outcome you're hoping you're going to get? You see, the reason why that's important is you need to know if you're successful. And the way to know if you're successful is you need to know if you're heading towards something. Right? You want to feel successful. It feels good to feel successful. I enjoy the feeling of feeling successful. And so what's the definition of success? I guess we'll start with that. I like Earl Nightingale's definition. That's the one I've adopted, and it's the one that I use. And the definition is the continual realization of a worthy ideal. The continual realization of a worthy ideal. Let me say that differently. Continually progressing towards a goal. That is success. If you are continually progressing towards a worthy goal, you are successful. Now, I challenged you just a second ago. Some of you might think, well, I want to lose weight. That's my goal. No, losing weight is not your goal. Losing weight is what you want to do to get the goal. What is the goal? The goal is to become thin. That's what you want to do. You want to become thin. Well, if I look at myself, I want to become a stepdad. And I want to fit my definition of what a stepdad is. My definition of a stepdad might not fit somebody else's. Might fit somebody else's completely differently. Your definition of thin might not look like somebody else's version of thin. Yeah, there's some generally acceptable ranges that you could look at and say, this is healthy weight, and that's not going to be by BMI. It's a waist to height calculator. You just go do that, and that'll tell you if you're in the healthy range, but you'll notice it's a pretty big range. I mean, it's noticeable in pounds and inches on your waist. Thin could be anywhere in there. You pick. Wherever you want to be in there is fine. That's the ideal. And you're just progressively working your way towards it. And what happens is you're progressively working your way towards this goal, 70, 80 pounds into a 150-pound journey, or, 70% of the way there, we'll say, or 60% of the way there. It just starts to get hard. It starts to get hard. And one of the things that makes it hard is we're comparing ourselves to where we were. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. This is where being a human is complicated. Sometimes the very thing that's a problem is the very thing that's your solution later. And sometimes the thing that's your solution becomes the problem later. It's fun that way, being a person. But here's the flip side of sometimes you need to just let go of where you were and stop saying you're doing better than you are. I've seen many a person that has convinced themselves they're losing weight when they have just been gaining and losing the same 5 pounds for 6 months because they keep comparing themselves to where they were 40 pounds ago. Well, I'm still losing weight. When's the last time you got a personal best? This month? Was it lower than the previous month's personal best? Well, no. Well, then that's not a personal best. The last time you got a personal best was a couple months ago. And if you're not within a handful of pounds of it, you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way if you're not within a few pounds of it. If your personal best was 15 pounds lower than you, you're going the wrong way. You need to work on that. And so the goal here, though, definition of success, I want to give you 4 goals. I think just pursuing thin is problematic, right? For obvious reasons, because thin is not the end all be all. But I think it's important to acknowledge that thin, there is a range that is acceptable, that is healthy. There's a range that's not healthy, right? I think we all know that. We all know that. We're talking about the healthy range. That's what I want you to shoot for. And so you get there, and you're going to want to stop. But then what? Right? Then what? And this is where I think having 4 goals is important. I call them the core 4 goals. And that is to be thin, healthy, happy, in shape. Thin, healthy, happy, in shape. That's what I want you to pursue. That's what I pursued. And the reason why we talk about that is I want you to think in terms of I am becoming a thin person. I am becoming a happier person. I am becoming a healthier person. I am becoming an in-shape person. I want you to think of this as like I am becoming a blank person. I'm becoming a role. I'm becoming an identity. I want you to think of it in those terms. And that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm looking at my life and I'm looking at my current self-image, my current identity of who I am, and I'm going, where is this not enough? Where is my identity limited in my vision? Now, I have to have a vision of what I want. What do I want at the end? I got to see that. And I've been working on it for a while. And I got that in my head, and now I get to take me and drop me into the scene and be like, do I fit? And I don't. I just don't yet. I got to work on that. I got to level up to get there, actually. And then, let me tell you why this is important. I'm going to read to you another section from Psycho-Cybernetics. The most important psychological discovery of this century is the discovery of the self-image. Whether we realize it or not, each of us carries about with us a mental blueprint or picture of ourselves. It may be vague and ill-defined to our conscious gaze. In fact, it may not be consciously recognizable at all, but it is there, complete down to the last detail. This self-image is our own conception of the sort of person I am. It has been built up from our own beliefs about ourselves, but the most of those beliefs about ourselves have unconsciously been formed from our past experiences, our successes and failures, our humiliations, our triumphs, and the way other people have reacted to us, especially in early childhood. From all of these, we mentally construct a self, or a picture of a self. Once an idea or belief about ourselves goes into this picture, it becomes true as far as we personally are concerned. We do not question its validity, but proceed to act upon it just as if it were true. All of your actions, feelings, behaviors, even your abilities will always be consistent with this internally held self-image. And you see, if I want to level myself up, if I want to get results that I have never had in my life ever, I have to look at my self-image and change it. I have to make it match something different. Now, I've done this before. This isn't my first rodeo doing this. I've done it before consciously, and I've done it many times unconsciously, just like you have. You have done this many, many times unconsciously. This isn't something you are incapable of doing. It just might be something you don't know how to do on purpose. And you can learn. I mean, you could pick up books like this. They'll walk you through the process. I mean, it's the whole damn book, and you got to like learn what's in it. Like it takes time to learn some of this stuff. I mean, you literally have to change your mind. I just want you to understand, like, leveling up your self-image is this almost the same as changing political parties or religions. You literally see everything differently about yourself. I know because I've done both of those. I've changed political parties and I've changed religions. I was born, I'm not going to get into it. I was born diehard one side and then I ended up on the other, and now I've kind of waffled somewhere in the middle because I see good and bad on both sides, right? Like both sides. I see things I like about both and I see things about both. I'm like, that's stupid. I don't fully agree with anybody. And so because of this shift, it makes it hard for me to want to fit in boxes. But because of that, it's also made it easier for me when I want to shift my self-image to go, who do I need to become to get the results that I want? Now, when I used to struggle with sales in the past, I used to struggle with that a great deal. I had to learn to become a person who is good at sales. I used to struggle with so many types of conversations in my life, like conflict. I used to be somebody that really, really struggled with having conflict. And I had to learn to become the kind of person who seeks out healthy conflict. I had to become that kind of person. I used to be the kind of person that solved my problems with food. I used to be a gamer. Well, I'm not a gamer anymore. I am no longer the kind of person that solves my problems with food. If somebody tells me about a new game coming out, I don't be like, ooh, what system is it on? What about this or that? I just say, oh, okay, I don't really play anymore. You want to play? I mean, no, I'm just not really a gamer, right? I'm out of the scene. I just don't really do that. It's not who I am. You could also think of it more absolutely if any of you have ever quit smoking, right? If a person comes up to someone that's quit smoking and they say, hey, would you like a cigarette? You don't be like, well, what brand is it? You're like, no, I'm not a smoker. You just say no. It's just not who you are. You change your self-image. You've done this before. And so I want to ask you right now, I just really want you to think about it. Forget your past. Forget everything before today. Forget it all. Just forget it all. Look at today and look at the trajectory of this week. Are you currently progressing towards your goals? If we just look at your behavior this week and this week only, forget last week. I don't care about last week. And I don't care about the week after. Just the week you're in, today plus 6 days. If I were to look at what you're going to do between now and the next 7 days, will I be able to say you're progressing towards your goal? If I had a camera following you everywhere and I couldn't hear your thoughts, I didn't get to talk to you, all I could do is watch you. And if I wrote a report on you, what would I say your goals are based purely off your behavior? Would I say your goals are losing weight? Would I say your goals are gaining weight? Would I say your goals are improving your happiness? Would I say your goals are reducing your happiness? What would I say your goals are based purely off of your actions? Why don't you look at your life this week? Why don't you just watch your life? Maybe jot a few notes down on paper of some of your behaviors. But just look at everything you do this week and then ask yourself next week, based off of last week's behavior, would somebody say I'm progressing towards my goals? And if the answer is no, maybe you need to change your goal or maybe you need to change your behavior. One or the other. I'm usually a fan of the second one, though, and that's where I'm at. It's time to pivot. You see, I used to in the past think I'm going to change overnight. I've learned better. How did I usually want to lose weight before? I would go to bed one way after having last suppered that shit, eating everything I could get my hands on, having the big last meal. And then what would I do? After I've set myself back, I would go try to lose weight, change up what I eat, change up how I exercise, change up what I say yes to, change up what I say no to, just make a whole bunch of changes about how my behavior, not change anything on the inside. I was just trying to change so much at once. Big sweeping changes. No more bread. Or, no more chewing. Nothing but shakes and puddings. Because chewing is bad. Oh, should I have water? I think I'm no longer the person that eats when I drink water because water messes up my digestion, so I don't do that. I would just try to do crazy shit. And now I've realized that don't work. That don't work. You just pivot. You just take everything you're doing now and just tweak it. And then you tweak it again. And then you adjust it again. And then you tweak it a little more. And you adjust and hone and change this setting and adjust this dial and twist this knob. And you just kind of tune and tweak your life, slowly steering it to where you want to go. I found when I do that, it works better. I've been doing that repeatedly for 5 years. I am just going to be perfectly honest. I am regularly leaving people in my life behind. Why? Because they can't hang. People will see me and they'll think that I'm fine. And, because you look at me one day to the next, not really much has changed. People might look even at my business, like, not really much has changed. And then you look over a couple weeks, it seems awfully similar. Oh, but there's a little, you can see them tweaking and adjusting. And then all of a sudden, the person lifts up their head a year later and they're like barely able to keep up. I'm like, look, because I'm like the freaking tortoise. Like, I just don't stop. Am I fast? No, not at all. Not even remotely fast. In fact, I usually actively shy away from the fast options. I just shy into the never stop. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. And then when I feel myself needing to level up, I just level up while I'm moving, right? I might slow down a little more. That's okay. But I just keep leveling up. I just keep leveling up. And here's the thing. It's the power of the pivot. You just pivot. You just make a little tweak, adjust, observe, see what's happening, reflect on it, and then make a couple more decisions, and then tweak, adjust, observe, reflect on it, make a few decisions, and then just repeat the process again and again and again and again and again. It works. You just raise your standards in life. And so I just want you to think about that. What are you becoming? What are you moving towards? You're moving towards something. You're either doing it by intelligent design or you're doing it unconsciously. But you're moving towards something. Now, here's the thing. This, full disclosure, I just saw a comment come up on the YouTube, and I'm going to go on a little side tangent and indirectly address it. But somebody mentioned that leaving people behind is unsettling. It is. It's very unsettling. And in fact, it's very painful. When you pivot and then you adjust and you get your bearings, and then you pivot and you adjust and you get your bearings, and you just keep doing it, and you're surrounded by other people that are just looking to find the status quo as fast as possible, and they just want to keep doing the same, and maybe a few, they'll do a little push, but then they just want to kind of get back to not doing much. They like to do big pushes and not a lot of consistent stuff, so they tend to burn out, and it just gets hard. It gets challenging. Or you just get people that are too rigid. They just, as you change, they just won't change. That's hard. That's hard. Yeah, everybody I've had to leave behind has hurt. Every single one of them has hurt. And I mean, they haven't all hurt equal. Some have hurt real bad. Some of them still to this day hurt when I think about them. But here's the thing. What I said earlier about the pursuing of the worthy ideal. If you don't know where you're going, leaving people behind is hard, maybe even impossible. It was easier to let someone go when I knew I was letting them go to have something great. That doesn't mean it wasn't painful, because is it a judgment on that person? No. But it is an assessment of their place in my life. And it's hard. As an example, I mean, I've reached a place in my life where I'm incredibly challenging to reach. And I've had people in my life, they've cut me off because of it. They didn't like that they could just get me at the drop of a hat. And so they stopped reaching out to me. They just said, fine, screw you. And then they just never reach out to me again. They said, and they unfriended me and blocked me on everything. And it was just like, that sucks. But it's reality. Sometimes people leave you behind. Sometimes people don't like who you're becoming. They don't like the changes you're making. And so you're not actually the one doing the leaving. It's more of they left you. It's not like you got to leave everybody behind in life. That's not what I'm saying. But there's just sometimes people that need to be left behind. But there's a flip side to that. Sometimes you're the one that needs to be left behind. Sometimes I'm the one that needs to be left behind. I have been the one left behind. And it hurts. It hurts. It's like a breakup. It hurts for both sides, just in totally different ways. But so are you progressing towards something this week? And that thing you're progressing towards, is it your worthy ideal? Or is it something else? Think on it. And I'll see you next week on the podcast.